Cancel culture is like a video game. I heard someone say this online about a month ago. I wish I could remember who. And I realized it's really like a video game for narcissists, where everybody in the game starts with, say, 100 points, and you win points by going around and attacking other people's reputations, just destroying them, and demanding that other people hate on those people too, and wreck their livelihood and ruin their relationships, and that you win because that makes you look important in the eyes of other narcissists who get their narcissistic supply by destroying people in this way. And I think people with CPTSD are especially vulnerable to this game, either getting swept up by charismatic narcissists who lead it, or through their own narcissistic tendencies of wanting to be liked, of wanting to be right, of wanting to be accepted, even when there's a great big emptiness inside. But here's what's so complicated about that. When you're attacking other people in this game, nothing you say has to be true because no one's going to come after you. Why? Because they're terrified. This is like starting to happen on a huge scale. If anyone stands up for someone who's getting attacked, they automatically become the target too. So it's like this multiplying game. If you chime in and you help attack them, you get points. Now, who doesn't want to win at such a high stakes game? It's kind of like the mafia, which is real, or like vampires, which is a metaphor. But in essence, it's a cult, in that once you participate even a little bit, you're going to be pressured hard to keep doing it. Because there's no one that narcissists hate worse than people who leave their orbit or quit, right? That's a threat to them. So you get attacked. And for people who were traumatized as kids, that threat, that implicit threat, or that explicit actual threat that you will lose everything, everyone will abandon you, you will be made ashamed, you will be pushed back into an impoverished and isolated existence where you came from, and you'll become the target of abuse. It is so terrifying and so coercive that you might be tempted to just do anything to make that stop. You might be tempted to go into denial about the real nature of what you're doing when you attack other people online. But it's so common, I just kind of need to address this to everybody. It's become so common for people to repeat things that aren't true online about other people. Now, they may not agree with it, but only narcissists have to destroy someone because they disagree, right? It's kind of like a crime spree. Once you get started, you kind of have to keep going. It gets harder and harder to stop, and the cost of stopping gets higher and higher. And your thinking, I imagine, gets more and more distorted, and the strength to do anything about it is just draining out of you. So first, I just want to say that by cancel culture, I'm not referring to the legitimate bringing to light or prosecution of someone who's committed a crime. That's real. And though there's often a cult around that too, that's meant to protect the abuser and weaken anyone's power to call it out, it does have to be called out. And there's a way to call that out through the law. But cancel culture is not about crimes per se. It's about vague things you can't really put your finger on and you can't prove, but you can say. You can say, and it has great power. And it's essentially perceived differences in values, in opinions, in your identity, in your affiliations with things. And so basically narcissists who play this game are thinking, you're not like me, then you are evil. I'm good. Everyone with differences from me is evil unless they exist to make me look like a good person, which they can do if you can make them the target of a cancel, right? And increasingly, the narcissists who play this game, they don't even care. Everybody knows this stuff isn't true, but people say it and repeat it anyway. Why? Because everyone knows the rules now. If you stand up, you get attacked. That is what the cancel culture narcissist wants, because that is their supply. They need people to fall into their traps and to be ruined, and that gives them energy. Okay? So I got a letter a couple weeks ago from a fan who is really struggling right now, who's in a horrible state of anxiety because they had the courage recently to exit the cult of cancel culture. And they saw my video, How to Stand Up to Opinion Bullies, and I'll link that below. But it prompted them to open up to me something they were very ashamed of. And it's that they participated for a long time with a group of people who systematically went around and actively sought to destroy the reputations of real people. People they knew in person, people in their institutions, and people online. And so the person who wrote me told me this. And they said that they fell in with this group of friends and it operated kind of like a gang. They were seeking people they could cancel. They weren't just like happening to notice something that offended them. They were looking for people they could cancel. And my letter writer said, at first, participating felt like they were doing something really good, that these extreme accusations might not be true, but they were necessary. They were in the right spirit to stop some sort of greater evil from happening in the world. The person who wrote to me had come into this group of friends believing that they were really going to stop and they were going to protect innocent people who would otherwise be harmed. And I think that's how all narcissistic cults get started, right? It might be false, it might be wrong, but it's because we're actually so wonderful that we're saving the world and we have to do this, and the ends justify the means. We've seen this again and again in history. Now, most people who participate in this kind of thing are under the influence of a charismatic leader. They might know the leader personally and there's a big group identity, or they might just be following this person online, just looking desperately for anything that sounds powerful, that sounds like it could lift up their lives into something more meaningful. That's what they're looking for, meaning, belonging. They want to be less depressed. They want to be more important. It's what everybody wants, but how do we get it, right? Now, a lot of people don't feel they have those things, that meaning and that source of, steady happiness. And there are, resentful narratives all around us and always have been in every culture in the world. In one era and place, it's the Catholics, it's the Jews, it's black people, it's white people, it's the rich people, it's the poor people. It's our human nature that we have some deep wiring that makes it possible for us to hate. And especially when we get worked up as a group, we can really start hating groups as a group or hate individuals as a group. The pitchforks come out. And if nothing stops it, it's like a train that's on a slight downslope and it has no brakes. So first it starts going a little faster and a little faster and then a little faster and then a little faster, and then it's just totally too late. And you know where that train goes? It goes all the way to the bad place that we've seen a couple times in the last century. Hate is contagious. Hate can't stop itself when no one stands up for it. And so I'm making this video to encourage everybody, if you find yourself participating in cancel culture, I'm going to just ask you, can you stop? Can you stop? Because everything good depends on every individual making a commitment not to go down those tracks. I was just in Berlin, and my son and I were going around learning a little more deeply about Berlin history and what happened there. It wasn't that long ago. It was pretty easy for a majority of people to flip into this mindset that they either went along with the narcissistic cult or they put their heads down and didn't say anything against it. Now, human psychology is weak and sometimes, and the power of malignant narcissists just gathers momentum. And when no one stands up, it is a runaway train. It takes everything out in its path. So we are no exception. This generation is not special. We are not endowed with some special divine exemption from the way things have gone in history for humankind. So my letter writer said that at first participating in canceling others didn't seem like it would get bad in any way. And they said it was like a high, actually, and it took a lot of courage for them to admit that they actually, had a good feeling about it. It made them feel like they were in the right, like they were good, like they were someone on a mission, like everybody wants to be on a mission. And it helped them feel, instead of worse than everybody, it helped them feel a little better than everybody because they were on this mission to save the world. But they didn't feel good. As things turned out, they had a lot of shame about what they'd done. And they told me that after a little while, that high, they started to come down. They had to keep participating in the canceling of people to try to get back that good feeling, like a drug addiction. It's like an addiction. And then it got still worse than that, where they had to keep participating or their friends would turn their destruction on them. So first it was peer pressure, and then it was something even worse than that, more like coercion and also like addiction, like having no choice. Keep it going, keep up the lie, keep upping the ante and saying more and more outrageous things to more and more innocent people, or you would be next. But my letter writer hit a limit one day, and I'm proud of them. They got out. They cut all ties with the people who were doing this. They became very isolated, and they were scared, but their conscience wouldn't let them turn back. They knew it was wrong to participate, and that's why I'm not even telling you their gender. I'm not telling you their name. I'm keeping them so anonymous because they are vulnerable now to this group of people coming after them online. And at first, they could see that canceling people was wrong, but they couldn't really see the truth of the people who had been hurt. And they told me that gradually they could see that the targets of the attacks weren't really anything like what they'd been portrayed as in these attacks. So my letter writer described what it was like to gradually awaken to this horrifying truth, that not only were the attack claims they made unfair, they were insane. They were just completely made up. It was imagined. And then it got more vicious, and the thought of getting out became harder and harder because eventually, it's going to require facing what you've done, and that's painful. But I'm telling you, as somebody who's done things that hurt other people, as soon as you become aware of it, the sooner you can stop, and the sooner you stop, the less horrible it's going to be. There's never going to be like a better time. Putting it off is never going to make it easier. Coming clean and stopping is going to involve some shame and facing something hard, but it also is accompanied with this wave of comfort and relief because you're finally getting free of the evil wave that's been passing over you. And so yes, there's some fear that people are going to come after you, but I don't think that's unrealistic, but I don't think it's a reason to stop. So after my letter writer got out, they were trying to just kind of like lay low, fly below the radar for a while. Now, did this person feel happy and great right now? Yes and no. Yes, because they had made the decision to stop participating in evil. But my letter writer was going through anxiety too, knowing how bad people can be out there and suddenly becoming very anxious that they would be targeted, not necessarily by that group of people, but by the world in general, by all the trolls out there, if they so much as spoke online or liked a comment on Facebook or said the wrong thing at work. And there was a feeling that their former friends were someone listening all the time, hanging over them, just waiting to pounce at the slightest move, to cancel them. They were afraid to write or work or leave their home or send me this letter. And I'd have to say this feeling sounds familiar. And you know what it sounds like? It sounds like PTSD. To have immobilizing fear that people are going to come after you just for being yourself, just for feeling a certain way, just for opening your mouth, right? And it sounds at first like you're being paranoid, but are you? I don't think so, because in cancel culture, the old gang really can come back after you. And if it's not them, it can be other cult members. We could call these flying monkeys. That's narcissism world jargon for, the helpers of the narcissist who come after and do the bad thing to them. They're still addicted to the game. Maybe they're narcissistic abusers. Maybe they're hostages of those narcissists. Either way, it's time for all decent and fair people, and especially people with CPTSD who need to be in that good feeling in order to heal from past trauma. It's time for us to stand up to dismantle this game. So how do we do that? First, we stop participating in the public shaming of anyone who stands accused of something that we have not, A, personally witnessed, or B, that we haven't done our due diligence to verify. From multiple sources, not just some sort of media thing, not something potentially dishonest, but to really verify, is the accusation true? Have you heard some other points of view about this? Is it nuanced? It almost always is. If you don't have those conditions, don't repeat the negative story. Verify it. And if you find that you must say something, especially online or in some public way, use the advice of Socrates and ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? And most of what you hear against others is not those things. It's outrage. You've heard the phrase outrage porn, okay? It's the same sort of thing. It's an addictive high. And make no mistake, it's not just there to drive ratings. It drives ratings because it divides. And if you do one thing for your community, be a healer of divisions. Do not be a divider. You do this by staying open-minded, by keeping your heart open. Now, you've heard my analogy about the front porch. You don't have to let everybody into your heart, but you can listen to them. And I talk about the metaphor. Let them stand on the front porch and tell you their opinion, and you can listen. You can take what you like and leave the rest. But you don't have to either let them all in or destroy them. That is black and white thinking, and that is trauma thinking, all right? So you can ask yourself, why do I even want to casually repeat this attack on another person, or on an organization, or a government office, or a country, or a leader, or an ethnic group, or any kind of person out there? What do I get out of slandering them? Now, if we're honest, what we get is a little hit of false self-esteem. False self-esteem, the kind you get out of, putting down others. It's kind of like crack. It's a high that's very cheap. It does terrible damage to people who use it and to everybody around them, and it doesn't last. So with complex PTSD, anything that lifts us up, that focuses our minds, is tempting. Lashing out can feel like empowerment, when really it's just dysregulation. I suspect a lot of people doing the cancel game out there are traumatized from childhood. They haven't healed yet, but even if they are traumatized, it is not an excuse for the violence they're doing to the social fabric. Now, if something bothers you about the way other people live their lives, or how they think or believe, or what they say, or what you think they think, or how you believe they believe, talk to them. Read books. Read things that have a different point of view than your usual source. Find out why people have different opinions. Of course, there are occasionally people who really are up to no good, and they say terrible things, but in most cases, people just see things a little differently than you. Mostly everyone wants the same things. I've noticed this. They want the same things for themselves and their families. Most people want the same things for their communities. The difference lies in how we think those good outcomes can be achieved. People have different opinions about that, and actually, there should be different opinions about that. Nobody's ever got it perfect. And there should be different opinions, right? What's the right way to raise children? What's the right way to provide medical care for somebody? What's the right thing to do about injustice in the world? These are all things that most people want to accomplish, but how we do it is conceived in these different ways in different contexts by different people. So that people have got to work together. They've got to bring their arguments to the table and hash it out. And, in a given time and in a given place, you come up with a solution and you improve on it and you improve on it and you do it differently over here and you compare the results, and over time we start to get this progress, all right? That's how it works. When you don't allow people to have a different opinion, that can't happen. And so whatever this is and whatever problems it has, usually consume it and suck it down into total ineffectiveness. And we've seen that again and again in history too. The answers to these problems are complicated, and if they were as simple as just doing things the way I think they should be done, they'd be solved by now. But they're not that simple. They're complicated. They are deep-rooted. They're debatable, and all progress depends not on some decree of the right thing forcing people out of their jobs, out of the public arena, but on a free-flowing stream of ideas and expression and learning and debate, and a place for people at the table who, for example, have CPTSD and who get kind of rattled and dysregulated in that kind of environment. How do we participate in the conversation? We can't possibly do it with this constant threat hanging over us that we're going to be canceled. There needs to be room for everyone in this stream of information and in this stream of progress. Perfect agreement is never going to happen, and luckily it's not a requirement. And in fact, requiring that is the nature of evil itself. It's what drives cancel culture. It's the lifeblood of the narcissist that there is one way to do things. Good orderly direction tends to arise through inclusivity and free expression. So stand up for those who are silenced. Speak up when you see injustice. Speak truthfully. Be very careful that you're staying true, and take care that your passion for truth doesn't cause you to be blinded, to make other people to see it your way. There's room for your views and room for theirs. So yes, there are costs to this. There are costs to letting everybody have a voice, but consider the alternative. This is how the best societies have flourished, and this is the kind of society that is safer for people who have been traumatized to practice using their voices and participating, moving forward along the path of healing. So if you get caught up with the canceling type, it's never too late to step back. Step back quietly at first if you have to get your head clear. Get support. If you know someone who's fallen down the hole of trashing other people, offer them a hand. Have their back. Don't judge them. Just help them out. Let them know you've been there. Speak up when other people get attacked. And I hope this never happens, but if you get attacked, speak up and say what you believe is true and right, and ask for help. When enough people get together to say the truth and to make it safe for other people to say what they need to say, it is diminished. Because you're a person who was traumatized, I invite you to have solidarity with all other people who have been traumatized. And when they say their truth, even if you don't agree with them, make space for them, all right? You can defend other people's right to speak. When we stand together in making space for that, the power of cancel culture is diminished. It makes it safe for you and for everybody else to be who they really are and to express themselves. And this is what a healthy culture looks like. and not coincidentally, what healing from trauma looks like, where every man, every woman is free to express who they really are. They might not be free to commit crimes, okay, but they can think for themselves. There's no other system in the long run that can lead to anything good. So if you're feeling hurt by this culture, if it's been affecting you, either you've been targeted, you hate listening to it, or even worse, you've fallen into it, the most powerful tools I ever found to get out of that kind of activity is the daily practice that I teach. It's a way to get free of fear and resentment, and it can be very helpful to calm complex PTSD symptoms, and especially the dysregulation that make us so vulnerable to other people. So the link to that free course is right below in the very top of the description section. You can click, there's like a little button that says more, or a little word. You click more, and the whole thing opens up. Some people ask, like, where are these links? They're in the description section, but I'm putting the daily practice at the very top, so it's easy to find, and you can do that. There's other things there too. And if you want to start learning some chops for how to stand up to people, I've got a video right here about how to deal with opinion bullies. And you can check that out right there. I'll see you very soon.